Moonlight pooled across the frost-rimmed stone of the Ares crescent chamber, tracing pale lattices over banners stitched with falcons and stars. Sansa Stark stood in the hush, breath low, gloved fingertips resting on the carved window arch. Beyond, the sky unfurled in black silk spattered with diamond shards, and the lamplit villages of the Vale glittered like scattered embers far below. Wind curled through the throat of the castle, carrying the faint whistle of distant mountain snow. She closed her eyes, steadied herself, and tasted the chill. In it lay the promise of endings. She had studied endings since childhood, though in songs they wore sweeter faces. In Winterfell, the singers taught her that treachery was punished by bold knights and valor crowned the innocent. Yet the world had prized those verses apart and slipped a dagger between their seams. Her father's gentle baritone had been silenced, her mother's arms emptied of warmth, and the songs had dissolved into screams beneath a crimson sky at King's Landing. There she had endured, pliant and silent, while the lion's cubs sharpened claws upon her heart. Later she had fled that menagerie and taken shelter beneath Littlefinger's wing. A wing of iron, barbed and gleaming, offering solace at a price no child could measure. Now, after months of climbing cold stone steps and colder court intrigue, she understood what the singers never told. Endings were crafted, not granted. Tonight she would craft one of her own. Footsteps echoed behind her, measured, soft as cat paws upon fresh powder. Lord Peter Baelish moved like a shadow stitched with silken thread, every fold of his sable doublet precisely tailored, every hair precisely in place, a phantom stitched to perfect poise. His smile arrived in the room before his words, sly and brittle. "My lady," he murmured, voice just above a whisper. "The moon does suit you so." Sansa turned, letting the pale light strike her face at an angle that carved innocence into her bones. She had practiced that angle in a looking glass, searching for the child he believed still malleable. "I could not sleep," she said, allowing a hint of tremor into her tone. "The winds sing too fiercely." Littlefinger advanced, gloved hands folded behind his back. "Storms gather, yes, but within these walls you are safe. You have me." His gray-green eyes flicked over her, a hawk marking a mouse, or so he imagined. She dipped her head, auburn hair spilling like copper wine over one shoulder. "I know." She let silence bloom, then added, "I brewed mulled wine to ease the chill. Will you share a cup before bed?" Peter's brows lifted in polite surprise. A performance, she knew. How thoughtful. Very well. They crossed to a sideboard where 2 cups of white porcelain steamed beneath a silver lamp. She poured from a small ewer. The crimson liquid coiled into each vessel, catching the flame and glimmering like ruby glass. In her palm, concealed by the polished pitcher, a shard of colorless crystal trembled. Ground finely, it resembled frost, tasteless, dissolving upon the tongue. A maester of the fingers had once shown Peter such curiosities, remarking how a mere pinch could hush a strong man's heart in sleep. Littlefinger had repeated the story to her on a night when he believed her trust absolute. It had taken months to steal the right vial from the maester's satchel, months more to measure courage against consequence. Now she tilted her wrist, dust sifting into Peter's cup like winter's first breath. She masked the motion by refilling the ewer with wine. They lifted their cups. He watched her drink first. She allowed herself the merest sip, bitter and thick. Then he tasted deeper, eyes half closing in appreciation. Spiced with clove and orange, it warms the very marrow. "Winter nights require such warmth," she murmured, "and winter justice." They spoke of trivial things, the next tourney at Gulltown, the price of grain, Lord Grafton's new bride. Seconds stretched into minutes, each heartbeat drumming within her ears, while she observed the subtle slackening beneath Peter's eyes, the way his fingers rested heavier upon the cup. He shook his head as if to scatter cobwebs. "Long day," he sighed. "Parley with those stubborn lords takes more vigor than torn." His words snagged on an unseen thread. A flicker of worry touched his gaze. Sansa's smile remained porcelain serene. "You should sleep," she said, voice wrapped in velvet. Tomorrow will be busier still. He set the cup down with care, yet his hand trembled. Yes, perhaps you are right. He took a step, staggered. Fingers brushed the mantle for balance. Strange dizziness. She advanced, offering an arm he scarcely managed to grip. They had rehearsed this too. He guiding her steps along marble halls, coaxing trust. Tonight she guided him. Down the corridor the air turned colder, torches guttering as mountain gusts snuck through arrow slits. Peter's breath rasped. He tried to speak, lips forming her name, but only a wet whisper escaped. She led him toward the moon door. That dread aperture loomed, an iron-bound frame opening into blackness. A straight drop a mile down to the bite of shattered stone. A single lantern flared upon a hook, casting morbid gold across the sky-blue marble floor painted with swirls of cloud. Peter clutched her shoulder, nails biting through velvet. Fear had sliced the cunning from his face, leaving raw disbelief. Sansa. Yes, my lord. She met his gaze, a glacier's calm within her eyes. He tried to draw breath to command, persuade, bargain, but the poison throttled his throat. Knees buckled. She caught him, easing him to his back upon the clouds. The lantern's flame danced in the damp of his widening pupils. I recall, she said softly, how you told me everything is a ladder, every man climbs or falls. She set a palm upon his chest. His heart hammered like a trapped bird. Tonight you fall, Littlefinger. She stood. In his fading consciousness, he watched her draw the lever. The moon door yawned open, star-studded emptiness beckoning. Wind screamed through, whipping her hair to a fiery banner. Peter tried to raise an arm, plea strangling on his tongue. I learned well, she whispered. Thank you. With a final, delicate push, she slid his body across painted clouds. Weight carried him through the door, and he vanished into night, a scrap of black silk ripped away by the wind. For a long moment she listened. No sound returned save the rush of air. When she closed the door, its iron teeth clamped with a hollow clang that echoed through her bones. The hush that followed felt vast, sacred. She retrieved the lantern, walked calmly back toward the high hall where the Lord's declarant would soon gather. The poison would leave no mark. The fall would speak for itself. It was, after all, well known that Peter Baelish loved to test fate by the moon door's edge. A tragic slip, they would say, but Sansa Stark would craft the tale's ending. Dawn spilled a cold blush across the Ares courtyards. Within the high hall, banners stirred like waking birds above pillars of pale stone. Lords of the Vale assembled one by one, boots echoing, voices hushed with anticipation. Rumor flew ahead of them. Lord Protector Baelish missing. The Lady Sansa requesting urgent counsel. Robin Arryn, pale and trembling, sat upon the weeping throne, his frail frame swallowed by ermine furs. Maester Colwyn hovered, vial in hand, steadying the boys' breaths with sweet sleep milk. Beside them stood Sansa, figure tall, cloaked in midnight blue trimmed with icy fox fur. A queen cut from northern winter, regal yet raw. Lord Yohn Royce arrived first, shoulders broad as keep gates, bronze runes on his breastplate gleaming. He bowed curtly to Sansa, suspicious eyes ringing her for cracks. Ser Lyn Corbray lingered near the pillars, his dark sword's hilt resting beneath a casual palm, smile too sharp. Behind him marched Anya Waynwood, Albar Royce, Horton Redfort, stalwarts once united against Baelish's intrigues. When all were present, Sansa stepped forward. Lords of the Vale, she began, voice clear as winter dawn. I grieve to bring ill tidings. She allowed it to hang, let their hearts lean closer. Lord Protector Peter Baelish is dead. A murmur rippled, the crack of a branch under fresh snow. Yohn Royce's brows knit. Dead? How came this about? He slipped through the moon door in the night, she said. I alone was with him. He left his bed restless, troubled by dreams of enemies circling. I followed, fearing for his state. In the crescent chamber, he drank mulled wine to calm his nerves. She glanced down, lashes veiling sorrow. He walked too near the door's edge. The wind, it was sudden. He lost balance. A lie woven with threads of truth, always stronger than invention alone. Ser Lyn Corbray tapped his sword hilt. "Convenient," he drawled. Yohn Royce silenced him with a look. "Lady Sansa, did Lord Baelish leave orders regarding the rule of the Vale?" Her pulse thudded. Now the next rung of the ladder. She withdrew a folded parchment sealed in black wax stamped with Baelish's mockingbird. "Before retiring, he pressed this into my care, should misfortune fall." His stamp and hand. She offered it to Royce. Royce cracked the seal, eyes flicking across lines penned in Peter's tidy script. Sansa knew each letter. She had forged them with a quill stolen from his own desk, practicing night after night until the curves of every P and S felt as natural as her sigh. She had fashioned it weeks before, sealing it with wax melted from the very signet he wore, lifted while he slept. Inside, Baelish appeared to name Sansa Stark interim protector of the Vale and regent for young Robin Arryn, until the sweet Robin attains his majority. Silence stretched as Royce read, brows lifting. He passed the parchment to Lady Waynwood. She paled. When it circled back, he turned to Sansa. "These are bold provisions." She met his gaze, unflinching. "Lord Baelish feared for my cousin's frailty. He believed my blood of the first men and experience at court fitted me to guide the Vale." She lifted her chin. "Yet I will not claim what you will not grant. Let the lords decide who should lead." By offering choice, she presented herself above desire. It was the taste lords savored, power not begged but conferred. Royce exchanged glances with Waynwood. Redfort. Whispered consensus fluttered like wings. Finally Royce spoke. "The boy is weak. The Vale must be steadied. I saw you at Lord Robert's side these past moons. Calm his seizures, counsel him with gentle words. And your claim to the Arryn bloodline through your mother cannot be ignored." He lifted a mailed fist. "I, Yohn Royce, declare for Lady Sansa Stark as regent and protector until Lord Robert's 16th name day." Waynwood followed, voice firm. Then Redfort. Then Linderly. Ser Lyn Corbray hesitated, eyes glinting tumult, but bowed last. Sansa felt their vows settle upon her shoulders like a mantle carved of ice and iron. In that instant, the girl who had once dreamed of lemon cakes and songs died a quiet death. In her place rose the Lady of the Vale. Days spun into weeks. Snow scythed across the passes, sealing the airy high above cloud seas. Within, Sansa molded power as a potter molds clay warmed by the kiln. She began with Robin. Each dawn she visited the sickly boy's chamber, reading tales of valiant falcons and gallant kings. She fed him warm broth and coaxed him to swallow Maester Colwyn's concoctions of iron and nettle. She walked him along the high hall colonnade, arm beneath his whenever tremors struck. She praised each step and tamed each petulant whine with patient strokes of his hair. Gradually, the boy's fits waned. His eyes, once clouded, brightened at her arrival. Meanwhile, she convened the lords, delegating tasks that kept them too busy to plot. Lord Royce oversaw defenses along the Bloody Gate. Waynwood audited grain levies. Redfort drilled garrisons. She encouraged healthy rivalry, each lord eager to outdo the rest in loyalty to the regent. Letters flew to Gulltown, ordering shipyards to craft new dramens emblazoned with falcons grasping direwolf paws. A sigil of unity she claimed Robin designed. Yet outside stone walls, winter claws tightened. Refugees from the Riverlands fled raider bands, beseeching the Vale's gates. Sansa recalled the faces of small folk burned in Lannister wars, and decreed that grain stores be opened, tents erected in the lower hamlets. She walked among them, cloak dragging in slush, listening to grief, promising shelter. Word spread. The Wolf of Winterfell guarded the Vale's gates. Within her solar, parchment piled, petitions, trade ledgers, spy reports from the fingers. She learned to read them as Maesters read constellations, discerning hidden currents. A cobbler's complaint about tithes revealed a corrupt port levy. A bard's song hinted at ironborn raiders stirring along the narrow sea. Sansa dispatched riders to Lightfoot Keep, shoring watchtowers, rewarding the bard with silver. At night she stood upon a frosted balcony, gazed sweeping peaks ablaze beneath moonlight. Alone, she allowed memory to uncoil. Her mother's laugh amid Winterfell's courtyard, Arya's scowl, Bran's eager questions. She whispered their names into the wind, and in its echo found resolve. The first true test arrived on a dawn scarlet as fresh blood. A raven bore tidings. Lord Harold Harding, distant Arryn kin and once named heir before Robin's birth, rallied Selzwards in Runestone's shadow. He claimed Sansa's regency a sham birthed by Baelish treachery. He marched to seize Gulltown, promising coin and titles to merchant princes if they turned coat. Council erupted in uproar, Corbray demanding knights ride at once, Waynwood urging parley. Sansa listened, palms resting upon smooth weirwood chair arms. When voices tired she rose, cloak whispering. Lord Harding stakes claim through Arryn blood. Let us honor tradition. The Eyrie shall host a trial of arms. Murmurs swept the hall. She continued, He seeks to dislodge my regency? Let him prove worth before the assembled lords. I will descend with Robin to the gates of the moon, open the lists. If Harding bests our champion, I will yield. Waynwood frowned. And if he refuses honorable combat? Then the Vale will see him for what he is, Sansa replied, ice in her tone. A pretender unwilling to chance spear point against truth. Royce grunted approval. Plans unfurled. Riders racing to summon bannermen. Ravens winging to Harding with terms. Sansa oversaw each seal, each phrase. The stage was hers now, the Vale the audience. Below the airy, snow-blanketed courtyards heaved with preparations. Tents blossomed like winter roses. Smiths rang hammers upon steel. Cooks stirred cauldrons of barley stew for 500 gathered knights. The trial of arms drew nobles and small folk alike, all curious to witness the red-haired wolf queen and the boy lord descending from their sky castle. Sansa rode at the head of a procession, astride a white palfrey whose mane she had braided with blue silk. Robin followed in a gilt carriage, guarded by Royce's bronze-clad men. Trumpets keened as they emerged through iron gates, banners snapping. A dire wolf entwined with falcon set against snowfield blue. Crowds shouted her name, voices ragged with cold and hope. She did not smile. A queen shows kindness sparingly, yet she let her gaze linger on faces, imprinting loyalty's price. In the training yard she greeted Ser Gawain Marble, champion of Gulltown. Broad, stern, loyal to Harding by oath yet swayed by coin. She offered him release from service should he lay down arms this day. He knelt, swore fealty to her banner. Rumor sprouted like spring grass. Harding's knights defected for the lady's cause. On the third morning Harding crossed the bridge of dirt between ridges, 600 Selzwards at his back. He rode a dapple gray, armor polished to mirror shine. Before gathered lords, he dismounted, helm tucked beneath arm. His smile was courteous, but his eyes measured Sansa as butcher measures calf. Lady Stark, he announced, voice projecting. I mourn Baelish's death, yet the Vale deserves steady hand, not foreign wolf blood. She inclined her head. Foreign? My mother was Arryn. My blood runs with the mountains and the moon. Still, if my hand is unsteady, prove it. She gestured to the tilting lanes. Single combat, your strength against the Vale's choice. Harding glanced to his captains. Then he laughed, a rich baritone rolling across snow. Very well. Who champions your claim?
Ser Bran's John?
Young Corbray. He scanned the assembly. Sansa raised a gauntlet hand.
Ido.
Gasps flurried. Royce stepped forward. My lady, this is folly. She faced him. I am regent by the Lord's will. Let the Vale witness my resolve. I will not hide behind men. She unfastened her cloak, revealing mail of fine black links layered beneath a fitted surcoat embroidered with dire wolf and falcon. The smiths had shaped it to her frame in secret nights, each ring a prayer of iron. Harding's expression flickered. Surprise, amusement, perhaps fear. You bear a wolf's courage, but I bear a knight's blade, he warned. I learned blade and courage from survival, she replied. Shall we? They met upon packed snow ringed by pine torchlight. Harding wielded a long sword balanced for reach. Sansa drew Needle's son, the northern steel Jon once gifted her before war parted them. She felt his memory steady her grip. At the horn's cry, Harding lunged, blade flashing like winter sun. Sansa sidestepped, cloak swirling, steel whispering across his pauldron. She had trained with Royce's arms master dusk till dawn, bruises painting her ribs. She knew her strengths lay in footwork, deception, speed. She wove between Harding's sweeps, nipping his elbow, carving shallow line across thigh. Crowds roared each time silver kissed blood. Harding's frustration simmered. He pressed harder, heavy arcs to batter her guard. Twice she parried, thrice, knees buckling. On the fourth he caught her vambrace, twisting. Pain flared, but she rolled, snow spraying. Rising, she feigned stagger, drawing him into overreach. His next thrust sailed wide. She pivoted, needle point slipping beneath his gorget. A heartbeat hung, then steel found flesh. Harding froze, eyes widening at red blooming upon snow. She withdrew, blood pattering from her blade. He knelt, gauntlets shaking, and yielded with a hoarse whisper. Silence engulfed the yard, deep, stunned, awestruck. Then a roar surged, echoing off granite cliffs. Lords raised swords, knights hammered shields. Lady Sansa, Lady Sansa. She stood amid swirling snow, chest heaving, hair plastered to cold-flushed cheeks. She tasted copper and triumph. Robin tottered from the carriage, blue eyes wide. He clasped her hand, raising it high. "My cousin, my regent," he cried, voice cracking but clear. "All hail the Queen of the Mountains and the Vale." The chant rose anew, rolling like avalanche thunder. Sansa felt its weight, heavier than chainmail. Expectation, devotion, fear, power. Night later found her alone in the solar overlooking the valley, stars draped above. Fire crackled, casting amber across shelves of old Aaron scrolls. She unbound her mail, winced at bruises mottling pale skin. Yet pain felt distant, eclipsed by vision. Ravens already winged to White Harbor, Riverrun, Winterfell's ashes, telling of a Stark risen to rule. House S long scattered might rally to her banner. If she secured the Vale's eyrie, then snows melted. She could march falcons and direwolves south or north, whichever called justice louder. Perhaps to King's Landing where a lion still perched. Perhaps to Winterfell where ghosts lingered. A knuckle rapped upon carved oak. Maester Colwyn entered, parchment in tremulous hand. "Forgive, my lady, but this could not wait." She unrolled the message. Black wax bore a twin direwolf seal. The words within were brief, scrawled in strong yet weary strokes. "Sansa, by the grace of the old gods I live. The north remakes itself, but we have need of you. Come spring, ride for Winterfell. Your brother Jon." Her breath caught, candlelight blurred. She pressed the letter to her heart. Images surged, Jon's arms warm around her after father's execution. The smell of snow-damp leather, the comfort of a brother's word. He called, she would answer, but she would not ride as frightened girl. She would ride as Lady of the Vale, cloaked in falcon feathers and wolf's fur, with nights at her back and storms in her eyes. She crossed to the balcony, gaze sweeping night. Somewhere below, Littlefinger's bones lay shattered, feeding mountain crows. A ladder, he had said. She had climbed it rung by rung. "Watch me now," she whispered to the wind, and the wind carried her vow across dark peaks toward the world beyond. Snowmelt dribbled along the giant's lance as spring teased the horizon. Sansa convened the Lords Declarant in the round tower, banners of each house draped behind their seats. Maps unfurled across oak, routes through the Bloody Gate, supply chains to Gulltown, treaties to barter with Manderly fleets. She listened, guided, pressed quills into hesitant fists. Word of her duel spread beyond the Vale, sung by minstrels in White Harbor taverns, whispered in Dragonstone's halls. Merchants bearing Myrish lace sought her protection. Spymasters offered secrets for her coin. An envoy from Riverrun knelt, beseeching alliance against the Riverlands' ravagers. She signed parchment with firm strokes. The Vale shall aid the Riverlands. In return, the Tully fleet shall guard Gulltown's harbor. Each pact forged another link in a growing chain of power. Yet chains possess weight. In quiet hours, she wondered if the girl who wept for stories of gallant kings would recognize the woman who penned war orders. She walked the rookery, feeding white ravens grain, finding solace in their hollow calls. One perched upon her wrist, dark eyes glittering. She stroked its feathers, whispering Vale Morgulis. The raven bobbed as if in solemn accord. When the first crocus broke snow, she led a procession down the mountain road toward the bloody gate. Knights rode behind, banners ribboning. Robin, pale but smiling, clutched a carved falcon helm gifted by Waynwood. Ahead lay Winterfell, family, and the long night's reckoning. At the gate she paused. Granite walls loomed, carved by ages to defy conquerors. Guards saluted, eyes bright with loyalty deeper than the stone they stood upon. She raised her right hand, palm outward. "Open," she commanded. Iron portcullis groaned skyward, the path to the world beyond yond. She spurred her palfrey. Hoofs thundered, echoing off cliffs. Behind, 1,000 voices howled her name, merging into a single cry that followed her into dawn. "Sansa, Queen of the Vale." The words rang within her like bronze bells. Yet she knew titles were but feathers atop iron. Beyond these mountains, lions snarled, dragons stirred, winter lingered. She would meet them all, blade poised, heart cold as north wind, and she would carve her own ending in the flesh of fate. Miles farther, perched in a lonely nest, an oily raven preened. Around its leg glimmered a thin silver band. Baelish's final contingency, dispatched the night before his last breath, bearing a folded scrap of parchment southward to fingers unknown.
Secrets seldom declinely.
But that tale waited behind distant doors, biding its time like shadow beneath moonlit wings. For now the road stretched before Sansa Stark, wide, perilous, drenched in the glow of awakening sun and the scent of thawing earth. She pressed her heels, and her mount surged onward, banners cracking, songs rising among snow-dusted pines. And the wind, ever watchful, carried whispers of a red-haired queen who poisoned the spider and seized his web, weaving a realm anew with strands of ice and steel. So began the reign of Sansa the Resolute, Lady Regent, Queen of the Mountains, Wolf of the Vale, and her story had only just unfurled its first page. The procession wound north beneath awakening skies, the frosted spires of the Vale receding into mist while young rivers, swollen with meltwater, laced silver ribbons across the foothills. Sansa rode at the vanguard in a cloak of snow-white direwolf fur that billowed behind her like a living standard. A crescent of Vale knights flanked her, Jon Royce in ruined bronze, Lynn Corbray with Lady Forlorn slung over one shoulder, Anya Waynwood's sons in bright enameled mail. Behind them plodded carts laden with salt fish, oats, and forged spearheads, while levies from the gates of the moon marched two abreast in helms that shone like morning ice. Robin Arryn, still frail but fortified by tinctures, traveled inside a cushioned litter whose curtains parted each dawn so he could wave to peasants lining the road. They cheered for him, but their eyes lingered on the red-haired woman astride the white palfrey. The songs were already changing. Lady of the Eyrie, Wolf of the Vale. Spring in the Riverlands came tardy and bruised. Burned farms from Lannister pillage still scabbed the earth, and gaunt hinds pawed at dead scrub in abandoned orchards. Sansa ordered her quartermasters to leave casks of rye and winter barley with each hamlet they passed, and she spoke softly with the elders, promising grain once their fields could be sown. Gifts cost less than swords, and gratitude armored a rule more surely than steel. Children chased her horse, laughing through rag-wrapped feet. She scattered silver pennies among them and remembered Arya's grin sprinting across Winterfell's yard. On the fourth week, they reached the Trident's fords where the air smelled of thawing mud and distant storm. Scouts reported a column ahead, banners of silver trout leaping red. Edmure Tully himself rode at its head, cheeks wind-chapped, his young wife Rosalind bundled in furs behind. At their rear strutted a speckled horde of river knights, some in patched mail but all riding proud. When Edmure beheld the falcon-wolf device, he reined in and dismounted, splashing knee-deep into icy water to meet his niece. "My lady," he said, voice thick. "It seems a Stark after all leads the North and the Vale." He knelt despite the chill. Sansa swung down, clasped his shoulders, and pulled him upright. "Uncle," she whispered. Tears pricked, but she mastered them. "Rise. We have all knelt enough to lions." They encamped together beneath willow boughs rattling with last year's leaves. Over spiced hare stew, Edmure told of raider bands still loyal to Gregor Clegane's memory, of Frey outriders testing Riverrun's watch. "But they scatter when we press," he said, face hardening. "The Riverlands bleed, yet we endure." He eyed her escort of Vale knights and exhaled slow. "Your presence will stiffen spines." Sansa traced the rim of her wooden bowl. "Come with us to Winterfell. The North remembers the Tullus aid. With Jon's blessing we can bind our forces. Then we return south as one river, wide and deep." Edmure studied the firelight flickering across her features, steel and snow mixing with quiet sorrow, and nodded. "Aye, one river." Far ahead, on a rain-slicked King's Road bordered by black spruce, a cloaked rider urged a lean bay into relentless canter. The saddlebag at his hip bore the sigil of the mockingbird sewn beneath the V of a lavender scarf. Dawn's first beam caught the wax seal of a letter, its edges worn soft by gloved fingers. The rider spared it a glance, Peter Baelish's final gamble, and spurred on. Down muddy cutbanks, through torchlit way stations, he followed a path of ashes and coins toward the capital where a queen with lion's eyes sharpened knives of policy. Each night he burned another in's common room with wine-thick tongue. Talk of a red-haired temptress poisoning gracious Lord Baelish. By the time he crossed the Blackwater ferry, the rumor rode at his side like a banner invisible yet loud. Winterfell rose from the heart of the North, its gray ramparts streaked with melt lines like tear tracks on stone. Steam drifted from the hot springs coiled beneath its courtyards, ghosting skyward to mingle with gull cries. Sansa had dreamed of this sight until memory blurred, yet as she crested the last ridge a hush stole her breath. The towers seemed smaller, walls reborn in fresh slate where giants once stood, but the Godswood's ancient boughs remained unchanged, crimson leaves rustling like pages of an old book reopened. Jon Snow awaited her on the bridge above the moat, black cloak snapping around battered armor. Ghost prowled at his heel, white fur bristling. When Sansa dismounted, he strode forward, every step awkward with memories of boyhood games now gone to dust. They halted a pace apart. Snowflakes fluttered between them, though the sun shone bright. "Little sister," he said. The words tremored, rough as castle stone. "Big brother," she answered. They might have embraced then, might have wept for innocence lost, but a queen and a king in the North cannot crumple before an army's gaze. Instead, Jon inclined his head, and Sansa mirrored him, two sovereigns sealing blood's bond. Ghost sniffed her glove, exhaled a rumbling woof, and nudged her thigh. She laughed low, scratching behind his ear. Jon guided them through rebuilt gates where northern banners interlaced with Vale falcons and Tully trout. Small folk lined the coarse stone streets. Some whispered, others called out blessings to Cat's daughter returned. She kept her chin high, meeting their eyes, letting them see not the girl hostage in Lannister gold, but the woman who commanded nights and rode through blizzards for her home. Their council gathered in the great hall that evening. Lyanna Mormont fierce despite fresh bandage on her arm, Lord Glover stoic, Meege Mormont's son Jorah returned from exile in ragged blacks, even the wildling Tormund rocking on boot heels beside Davos Seaworth. Jon sat at the high table on a carved weirwood seat, Sansa at his right. Robin Arryn, cheeks flushed with wonder, perched on a cushion further down flanked by Bronze Yone and the maester from the Eyrie. Edmure Tully, still smelling of river mud, occupied the place where once Robb Stark had laughed over spiced wine. His eyes flicked up to stone direwolves etched on pillars, and moisture glimmered there. Jon rose, voice carrying. "The North has bled through war and winter, yet hope rides with us. The Vale's talons, the Riverland's heart. My sister brings both." He gestured to Sansa. She stood, the hall hush wrapping her like fur. "I come not to rule Winterfell," she began, truth steady on her tongue, "but to serve it. Blood calls blood. My banners are yours, if you will it, until peace washes the land." She let that settle. "In return I ask this. Let the Vale and North forge an unbroken alliance, steel bound to ice, so no lion, kraken, or Sellsword king can break us again." Low murmurs stirred. Lyanna Mormont slapped her table. "Bear Island will have it." Glover followed, then the Umber's tall heir, then Corbray with a flourish of dark blade. The hall's roar swelled until rafters shook. Jon clasped her forearm and raised it high. Cheers thundered. Yet later, in the silent solar off the bedchambers where her parents once whispered, Jon poured 2 cups of mulled cider and set aside titles. "Tell me of Baelish," he said, "fire guttered in Greatstone, and of your heart." So she spoke. Of poisons ground fine, of moon doors and forged letters, of weight that crowns the sleepless. Jon listened, jaw tightening but eyes never leaving hers. When she finished, he exhaled deep. "Next time share the burden." It was a brother's plea, not a king's rebuke. She reached across the scarred oak table and took his rough hand. From this night forward, spring quickened. Vale engineers erected new palisades along the King's Road. Northern lumberjacks felled ironwood for siege wagons. In the castle yard, Sansa instituted daily joint drills, the bronze-clad knights learning to fight beside fur-cloaked spearmen. She oversaw ration ledgers with Glover's stewards, balancing meager turnip stores against the hungry mouths of new levies. At dusk she huddled with old Scepter Attendal, copying ravens to White Harbor and Barrowton, inviting their maesters to Winterfell for a great council come midsummer. She signed each message with ink the color of deep wine. "Sansa Stark, Regent of the Vale, Lady of Winterfell in mine absent brother's stead should he ride to war," because war drifted like distant thunder. From the south came rumors of Cersei Lannister's new covenant with the Faith Militant, of Sellswords arriving from Volantis wearing sunburst sigils of the Golden Company. From the east lingered talk of dragons grown restive in Dragonstone's cratered keep, their queen Daenerys organizing parley with the Stormlands. Jon's advisors argued nightly, Davos fearing split allegiances, Tormund scoffing at silver-tongued southern queens, Royce urging immediate strike while the Vale's talons were sharp. Sansa listened, stitched silence into tapestry. She had studied Cersei behind jeweled smiles and Joffrey's shadow, knew too well the lioness devoured threats before they clawed back. But Daenerys Targaryen was an unknown page, breaker of chains, yet also daughter of wildfire. The North could not fight dragons and lions both, not alone. Thus she wrote another letter, this one in her own spidery hand, to her Grace Daenerys of House Targaryen, Queen of the Undulls, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, breaker of chains, mother of dragons. She paused, dipped quill again. "I know what it is to burn chains, though mine were of silken lies. The North and the Vale wish only to guard their people and the realms of men. Let us speak beneath the heart tree of Winterfell before the lions roar. I offer bread, salt, and honest counsel. In return, come in peace, your dragons tethered not by iron but by mercy. Together we might break more than chains. We might break the wheel that grinds good folk to bone dust." She sealed it with wax impressed by the intertwined sigils of wolf and falcon, then pressed the parchment to her lips in silent prayer to the old gods for wisdom, and to the new, that Daenerys answer kindly. It was while ravens took wing that Baelish's silver-banded bird fluttered into the Red Keep's rookery. Queen Cersei read the scroll thrice beneath golden candlelight, lips curling. Ser Qyburn lingered by the window like a pale spider, black eyes glittering. "So the Stark girl plays queen," Cersei mused. "And poisoning? How quaint. I taught her well without a single lesson." She held the parchment close to the flame until edges brown crinkled. "But a ladder built of corpses stands only until a stronger gust blows." She pivoted toward Qyburn. "Send whispers to Gulltown. We will learn which knights follow a child of wolves. Whisper too to the phrase. Perhaps enough coin will pry their daggers from dull scabbards. The North recalls the red wedding's bite." Qyburn bowed deeply, robes whispering like gravecloth. Later Cersei poured herself arbor gold and gazed upon the Blackwater's night shimmer. Across the dark waters a new wolf banner flapped somewhere far. She tasted sour fear within sweet wine and spat it in the brazier. "Let them send dragons," she told the cold stars. "I keep wildfire." In Winterfell's godswood, candle lanterns swayed from frosted limbs, casting pools of ochre over the heart tree's weeping face. Sansa knelt upon moss damp with meltwater. She remembered her father kneeling thus, whispering to unseen spirits. Now she sought them too. "Watch over the north," she said. "Watch over Jon. Watch even over me, though I have taken blood into my own hands." A wind stirred, rustling red leaves like soft applause. She opened her eyes to find Bran Stark. No, the three-eyed crow in Bran's flesh, seated behind the trunk, gaze remote. "You changed the song," he murmured, voice echo-odd. Peter's thread snipped sooner than before. Sansa's throat tightened. Threads needed cutting, perhaps, but the tapestry trembles. Bran's blind pale eyes shifted toward distant sky. In one path the Vale arrives alone and meets fire under the moon. Now ice and river follow. The flames flare brighter. She clenched gloved hands. "Do you know what happens?" "I know what might happen. Choices braid futures. You must choose still." He met her gaze suddenly, the boy beneath the crow. "Be careful which promises you bind, Sansa. A dragon's debt burns hotter than wildfire." The words rang in her mind long after he left like a ghost through snow. The Dragon Queen's reply arrived on swift wings 10 days later, parchment edges singed as though kissed by flame. "Lady Sansa Stark, your courtesy honors me. My father's shadow looms long in the north. I should like to speak before that shadow stretches anew. I will come with one dragon only, regal and a small retinue. Expect me upon the first full moon. I will break no bread by force. May our meeting hatch peace for a realm in pain. Daenerys of House Targaryen. Peace or peril?" Sansa read the lines until ink blurred. She summoned Jon, Royce, Davos, Lyanna Mormont. Plans erupted, ballista placements, guest chambers scrubbed, smiths reforging chains once used to haul trebuchets. Jon would greet Daenerys beyond the walls, ghost at his side, banners lowered in respect yet ready to rise in war. Privately, Sansa directed Maester Colwyn to prepare subtle drafts. A mild wine-sweet infusion that quieted anxiety, and a deadlier colorless tincture that stilled the heart, insurance she prayed to never unstop her again. On the eve of the full moon, Winterfell's courtyards thronged with lanterns like fireflies pinned in glass. People craned necks skyward, murmurs knitted into hush. Then breeze shifted, warm for spring, tinged with sulfur. Aurora rolled across the ramparts, and Regal emerged from Cloudbank, emerald scales glimmering argent beneath moon's crest. His wings beat thunder, scattering frost from rooftops. He spiraled once above the godswood, then settled with surprising grace upon the wide northern field. Snow billowed at his landing, but stewards armed with buckets doused stray sparks before they caught thatch. Daenerys descended a rope ladder draped along Regal's neck, black leather fluttering. At her back marched Missandei with parchment satchels, Grey Worm in immaculate armor, Tyrion Lannister cloaked in wolf fur trimmed crimson. Watching from the battlements, Sansa felt her pulse quicken at the dwarf's familiar smirk. Lannister debts travel far. Jon advanced alone into torchlight, helm removed, palms empty. Daenerys mirrored his courtesy, silver-white braids cascading, violet eyes assessing winter's bastard turned king. They spoke words lost to the crowd but heavy with futures. Hands clasped in greeting, no blades yet drawn. Sansa stepped from the gatehouse accompanied only by Lyanna and Bronze Yohn. She moved slow, each crunch of boot on packed snow echoing across the hush. Daenerys's gaze flicked to her, curious. Sansa dipped her chin, too slight for deference, too deep for arrogance. "Your Grace," she said, breath pluming. "Lady Stark." Daenerys's smile was tempered steel. "Your letters speak softly but carry weight. Winter thickens every tongue." Sansa gestured toward the hall. Let us share warmth, and gauge if our dreams may fit the same hearth. As they strode past gates, Tyrion lingered, eyes gleaming candelamber. Lady Sansa, he called softly. She paused. He pressed a fist to his heart in sardonic salute. You look well. Marriage ended my illusions, she replied, surprising herself with gentleness. But not my gratitude. A flicker of sorrow crossed his face, vanishing behind jest. May this union of wolves and dragons fare better. The feast stretched into late hour. Regal dozed beyond the walls, his snores rumbling through stone like distant drums. Inside, long tables groaned beneath smoked salmon, neeps, marrow pies, and Dornish pomegranates gifted by Daenerys. Cups clinked, stories braided tongues. Yet beneath the convivial din, Sansa felt tension twist like catgut. She watched Daenerys laugh at Tormund's rambling ode to big women. But the queen's fingers drummed restlessly near her goblet. When musicians struck soft lute chords, Sansa rose. Forgive me, she murmured to Jon. I must breathe snow. She wove through servants and slipped into the night chill of the gods' wood, lantern swinging. There amid whispering leaves she found fresh tracks, small, deliberate, leading between roots to the weeping heart tree. And there, beneath red boughs, stood Tyrion, silhouette hunched. I wondered who else sought quiet, Sansa said. He turned, startled. Old memories haunt louder than music, he confessed. I visited this tree once when your brother Robb marched south. I prayed to gods I do not know to save him. His breath fogged. They did not listen. Prayers are seeds. Some lie fallow. She stepped closer, lantern glow painting the carved face crimson. Why come now? To weigh rumors. He tapped his brow. Our master of whispers, once Varys, now cobwebbed informants, claims Lord Baelish met an untimely fall. Sansa's pulse stilled. He lost footing. In a fortress he built? Tyrion cocked a brow. Curious. Then softer. I owe him no grief. But I wonder, was it mercy or vengeance? Survival, she answered, voice barely above wind. And mercy for others he would have broken. He studied her, half-shadowed. Hard choices forge hard queens. I pray the steel remains tempered with heart, Lady Sansa. She met his gaze. I pray yours remains tempered with honor, Lord Tyrion. She turned to depart but paused. If rumors trouble your queen, remind her. Wolves bite only when cornered. Back in the hall, she found Daenerys standing alone beneath a banner bearing the flayed man of House Bolton. War spoil repurposed into a torch tapestry. The queen traced the charred edge with slim fingers. They burned this hall, Daenerys said, sensing Sansa's arrival. Her voice held sorrow rather than fear. Then you rebuilt. Stone endures, Sansa replied. Memories too. She glanced at the Dragon Queen's profile, angry and determined. Tell me, your grace, if you sit the Iron Throne, what becomes of North and Vale? We break the wheel, Daenerys answered, eyes aflame. No more subjugation of realms. Vassals by choice, not fear. Words. Sansa folded arms. I have known golden words masking iron chains. Daenerys faced her fully. Then judge deeds. I freed Slaver's Bay. I will free Westeros. From tyrant lords, from debt bondage, from hunger. And if Westeros frees itself, will dragons still fly over northern fields? Silence crackled between them like frost over a pond. At last Daenerys exhaled slow. The North bled for freedom. I will not revoke it. Bend the knee or stand beside me unbowed, so long as we stand together against those who shred the innocent. She extended a hand. Join me. Sansa looked at the offered hand, slim, yet calloused by storms. She thought of Bran's warning, of Baelish's lessons, of Ghost dozing at hearth while a green dragon warmed earth beyond the walls. She thought of children singing her name in ruined villages and of wildfire stockpiled beneath the Red Keep. Finally, she laid her gloved fingers over Daenerys's. Prove to my people that dragons guard, not rule, she said. And we shall ride with you. She squeezed, firm. But betray us and winter itself will rise in your path. Daenerys's answering smile was fierce as sunrise over battlefield snow. Then let us forge a new summer. They drafted terms before dawn. Grain caravans from the Vale to feed Targaryen camps, northern steel for dragon-forged spearheads, an accord that any vassal realm could withdraw its pledge after 10 years without repercussion. Jon affixed his direwolf seal. Daenerys pressed the three-headed dragon in red wax. Sansa added the falcon entwined with wolf. Grey Worm and Bronze Yone clasped arms in silent acknowledgement. Davos joked that old gods and new might squabble less if given a proper meal. Yet across the sea of lantern light, Bran's pale eyes watched the parchment swallow ink, and within their depths flickered images of fire on snow, ice on flame, dread on wing. Futures yet unborn shivered. 3 nights later, a hooded rider reached the camp of the Golden Company near Duskendale. He presented a silver-banded raven leg ring to Captain General Harry Strickland and whispered of poison and moon doors and a queenling's fragile alliances. Coin clinked weighty as prophecy. Strickland, who prized bright metal over loyalty, tucked the ring into a pocket near his heart and turned his gaze toward the King's Road leading north. Under a sky filled with rippling lights, pale ribbons dancing beyond mortal grasp, Sansa stood on Winterfell's walkway beside Jon. The aurora painted his scarred face green and violet. Below, Regal stirred in sleep, scales reflecting celestial fire. "We gather armies again," Jon murmured. "More blood. Not by choice," she said, "but by resolve." She nudged him with shoulder. "We hold the Vale of Vale itself now, and the rivers and perhaps dragons. That counts for something." "It counts for hope," he agreed. "Hope, a fragile bloom amid crushing snows, yet one tended by wolves and falcons might root deep." Sansa drew breath that tasted of pine and distant lightning. She thought of her father's words. The lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. Tonight, the pack filled Winterfell's walls. Bear and trout, falcon and dragon, all bound by threads she had woven, threads yet untested by the sharp teeth of war. She tightened her cloak, turned her face to the heavens where lights danced ancient dances, and whispered to the gods of old and new alike, "Hold!" And far below, unseen beneath the shine, an assassin whose dagger bore a mockingbird hilt slipped through the kennels toward ghostly white fur. Threads pulled taut. Dawn crept pale when a shout rang through the courtyard. "Attack!" Voices collided, swords rasped, ghosts' howls split the chill. Sansa jolted from restless sleep, rushing to the window where torches flickered around a prone figure. Bronze Yone kneeling over a dark-clad intruder. The man's wrist was snapped, dagger fallen. Pale light revealed the mockingbird pommel. Yone looked up, met her gaze, and shook his head grim. "He aimed for the beast," he called. Ghost, unharmed, paced in circling fury. Fur bristled like winter storm clouds. Sansa's blood ran ice. So Baelish's reach persisted beyond death. She ordered the man kept alive. Answers always cost less than questions left to fester. But she lay awake thereafter, hand on hilt, counting enemies still unmasked. Jon convened war council at sunrise, Daenerys on his left, Sansa on his right, 3 heads of a strange new dragon. On the map, they traced routes of Sellsword armies rumored to march from the south, of Euron Greyjoy's longships harassing Gulltown trade, of Cersei's raven to the faith-promising restoration of September funds in return for blessing her unborn heir. Each piece moved across worn leather like seeds across a field soon to be plowed by spears. "Strike first," urged Grey Worm. "Storm King's landing before Sellswords arrive." "Hold fast," said Davos. "Starve the lions behind their walls. Let infighting rot them." "Secure coast," argued Royce. "Without ports their Sellswords cannot land." Sansa listened, then spoke. "Divide and conquer fails when foe divides you first. We must weave a single spear. The riverlands feed, the Vale wings, the north guards, and dragons strike where mortar cracks." She tapped the map at Crackclaw Point, narrow land bridging Crownlands and Bay. "If we hold this neck, Golden Company cannot reach the city, and Cersei must ride out or starve within." Daenerys leaned in, interest flaring. Regal can scorch their supply lines along the Rose Road, but I will not burn innocents. Sansa met her eyes. Then burn only fields reserved for lion armies. Spare the farmer's barn. She slid a parchment of crop census toward the queen. We know which. Jon nodded. We break their bread, not their souls. Plans crystallized. Scouts dispatched east and south. Ravens summoned banners. Edmure readied barges on the Red Fork. Lyanna Mormont drilled young spearmaids with grins toothbright. Sansa oversaw each ledger, each pledge, each whispered rumor funneled by newly loyal informants who once served Baelish. Every dawn she walked the ramparts, frost crunching underfoot, gaze sweeping horizon for dragon wings and golden sails alike. On the 7th morning, a raven returned from Gulltown. Euron's fleet sighted sailing north with black sails trimmed gold. Sansa gathered Jon and Daenerys in the map room. The queen dispatched Regal at once, climbing leather harness with Grey Worm at her flank. The dragon's cry split clouds, and scale-bright shadow fell over ridged peaks as he soared southeast. Sansa watched from a tower slit, heart hammering. War had begun, born not by her choice but by wind and fire and blood feuds older than her cradle songs. Yet she would meet it not as pawn but as player. She descended the stair and summoned quills, ink, and messenger riders. Orders must fly faster than wings of war. That night, as banners snapped crimson beneath waxing moon, a messenger from the dungeons arrived at her solar. The Baelish assassin had broken under Royce's questioning. His confession spilled across parchment now trembling in Sansa's hands. Instructions to kill the direwolf, sow terror, leave Mockingbird dagger to brand the queen a liar and murderess, financed by whispered promise of gold equal to a small keep, gold sealed by lion signet. Sansa folded the parchment, flame shivering in her eyes. She strode to Jon's chambers where he sharpened Longclaw before firelight. Wordless, she tossed him the confession. He read, jaw clenching. We ride south, he said. Soon, she answered. But first send a raven to Storm's End. The Baratheon bastard Gendry holds it now with Smith's hammer and old oaths to you. If he joins, we flank Cersei's coastline. Jon considered, then nodded. Good. What of you? I returned to the Vale. She saw his protest rise and stilled it with raised finger. If Euron slithers past dragons, Gulltown will burn. I must protect our flank. She swallowed. And remind the Lords Declarant why they chose me. Jon's dark eyes softened. Be wary, little sister. She allowed herself a small smile. Wolves travel far but always find their den. She clasped his forearm. Hold Winterfell until I return. Before dawn she mounted her white palfrey, cloak lined with new mail, Corbray and 100 knights riding vanguard. Robin pressed a falcon-etched brooch into her palm. For luck, he whispered, voice steady for once. Bran watched from ramparts, eyes distant. She thought she glimpsed pride between the fog of visions. Daenerys descended from Regal's saddle, smear of sea salt on brow. The Kraken flees, she reported. We broke half their masts. She gripped Sansa's wrist. I will scorch the path ahead if needed. Sansa squeezed back. Guard the north while I guard your shore. They exchanged nods, queens of fire and frost. Then Sansa swung into saddle and thundered through the open gates, banners streaming behind like comets. She did not look back. The road twisted east into stands of snow-pale birch, sunrise igniting sky to rose gold. Around her clattered shields freshly painted, the intertwined sigil of dire wolf and falcon. It glimmered like promise. Miles ahead, at edge of light, she pictured jagged airy peaks rising through memory. Beyond them waited gull-cry harbors, cunning merchants, and perhaps enemy sails black as grief. But she feared none. Her hands had shaped fate from poisoned dust and moonlit falls, had steered armies with parchment lines. She whispered to the pacing hooves, onward. The wind answered, carrying scent of brine and distant smoke. And Sansa Stark rode, braid snapping, eyes bright with iron resolve. The ladder climbed still skyward. She would ascend every rung, even should the clouds bleed fire. Mist coiled like pale serpents around the mountain road, muffling clatter of hooves to a dull drum. Sansa's column descended the high pass beneath hemlocks still jeweled with melt ice, their branches rattling a dirge overhead. Dawn's first copper light kissed frost-silvered helms and painted every rune on Bronze Yohn Royce's breastplate a sanguine glow. Snowmelt trickled through ruts and pooled in wheel-worn hollows. Her palfrey splashed through, each step steady, measured, unwavering as her aim. Behind marched 100 knights of the Vale, Corbray brothers gleaming in dusk steel, Redfort's grim shields marked with the Red Tower, Harding's few loyalists chastened but resolute beneath new banners stitched hastily with falcon and wolf. Though breath misted in the chill, within her breast a furnace stoked by purpose burned hot and bright. They skirted the greenwood hamlet of Moonpool by midday. Farmers paused from chiseling ice from furrows, doffed caps, and murmured blessings. Sansa ordered 2 wagons of rye and salted cod left at the tiny sept. Gratitude lit tired eyes. Every kindness was a thread binding common folk to the house that protected them, and threads, woven enough, became chains stronger than iron. By nightfall, the road angled toward Stone, the stout keep guarding the last valley before Gulltown. Scouts awaiting at its gate greeted her with grave faces. 3 carracks flying kraken banners had been sighted off Maiden's Wharf at dusk. Sails reefed while smaller, faster longships probed coves further along the coast. Worse, fishermen claimed to have seen Blackhull outriders dragging torches through gull-haunted sea caves, scorching storehouses of salted herring destined for Gulltown's winter reserves. The Ironborn reaved not for coin alone but to starve their prey. Sansa called council in Stone's Hall, the air thick with peat smoke and pine tar. Maps littered a long oaken table carved with dancing stags of ancient Arryn wars. Bronze Yohn planted a mailed finger on Tidebreaker Cape. "We hold 2 coastal towers here and here," he rasped, "but their garrisons number 40 each. Euron Greyjoy will smash them like nut shells if his longships swarm at dawn." Corbray leaned over the charts, dark eyes gleaming beneath candlelight. "Then we do not wait for dawn. Send a vanguard tonight, archers in leather rather than plate, moving along goat tracks above the cliffs. Let's string lanterns behind the ridge to mimic campfires and lure the kraken into shallows at high tide. They run aground, we rain pitch." Sansa listened, measuring risk against reward. They possessed scant pitch, and archers on cliff spines risked being swept by sudden gales. Yet timidity had felled giants at her feet long ago. She turned to Ser Roland Storm, captain of Gulltown's harbor galleys, summoned here by Swift Raven. "How many fire ships can you ready before moonset?" "3, my lady," Roland answered, scarred face flickering orange. "Old hulls loaded with pine resin and chicken grease. They won't sail straight save on an ebbing tide, but set afire they'll make a fearsome drift." "Drift them at the flagship," Sansa commanded. "Corbray's archers will drive the krakens landward. Our fireships cut off their retreat." Bronze Yohn. She met the old knight's hawk-like gaze. "You and I will take the center with the heavy horse at dawn. When they scramble for footing, we hammer." Royce's beard twitched with a grudging smile. "A bold pincer. I'll ride before first pink." The plan set, she dismissed the men but held Corbray back. Once the chamber emptied, she spoke in a low hush. "Your blade hungers for iron-born skulls, Ser Lyn, yet I need cunning as much as steel. Intelligence reached me on the road. A Golden Company dispatch rider crossed the fingers 3 nights past bound for the Eyrie. If Sel's words conspire inland, I must know. Take 5 men, ride the hidden mule path through Red Song Valley, and intercept any messenger wearing the golden sunburst." Corbray's smile curved like a blade unsheathed. "Lady Forlorn has tasted kraken blood before dawn. She can wait for Sel's words by dusk." He saluted, cloak flaring dark, and strode into night. Sansa lingered alone, palms splayed over the map, vision skimming inked coastlines, counting heartbeat against heartbeat. The road of queenship offered no rest. Each mile one demanded another gambit, another lifeline knotted before the last frayed. Yet her mind felt honed now. Littlefinger's whetstone might have scarred her, but it had sharpened her edges to glint. Moonless dark cloaked tidebreaker cape as if the Night King himself breathed over sea and strand. Jagged rocks jutted like dragon's teeth. Waves clawed them with foam-flecked talons. On the high ridge, archers from House Belmore crouched among knotgrass. Bowstrings waxed against damp. They hung lanterns behind the crest, low and staggered, mimic of cookfires marking a phantom camp. Below, 3 gaunt longships eased between shoals seeking plunder. Oars raised to silence, sails half-furled. Iron-scale armor glimmered along their rails. A horn blast rasped from the cliff path. Arrows hailed down, iron-tipped shrike screeching. One ship's helmsman crumpled to deck. Another shaft bit rope and set mainsail loose, sending flax cloth thrashing. Amid curses in harsh seafaring tongue, Ironborn swung to reef sail proper, but tide sucked beneath them, drawing keels onto hidden bars. A grinding shriek split the black. The longship's prow kissed rock, lurched, oars snapped like brittle bones. Crew scrambled, brandishing axes. From stones sheltered inlet, fireships burst forth, ghostly slivers crimson-lit. Pitch barrels stacked upon their decks already smoked where tar dripped onto torch bundles. No helmsman guided them. Currents bore them, sails tied to catch the steady offshore wind. An ironborn reaver bellowed warning. Too late. First fireship kissed the beached carrack amidships. Flame whooshed skyward, hungry dragon tongues devouring tarred planks. Within breaths, orange pillars roared, silhouetting panicked silhouettes leaping into surf. On the ridge, Vale archers loosed flaming arrows, fletchings flaring against starless dark. The second longship erupted as arrow. Fell into open hold stacked with pilfered fish oil. A fireball billowed, scattering ash across foam. The smell of burning herring and pine tar choked the wind. At silver-gray dawn, heavy horse thundered from the goat track behind, Royce's bronze knights bristling. Ironborn survivors slogged onto gravel beach, armor water-heavy, just as lance points glinted. Charging destriers crashed into their loose shield wall. Royce's hammer sang, flattening helm to skull. Vale banners snapped overhead, falcon devouring kraken. Sansa rode beside him, needle sun in hand. She sidestepped a wild axe swing, turned, and slipped steel beneath an iron-born gorget. Blood sprayed black under rising sun. Another fell to her horse's forehooves. She fought not with frenzy but with cold memory. Harding's duel, hunger of eyes in Lannister court, father's head on spike. Each thrust answered a ghost. It ended swiftly. Of 50 raiders, 8 crawled breathing. They knelt bound, salt-crusted hair clinging to faces as Vale levies stomped dying embers. Royce approached Sansa, helm under arm. Victory, my lady. Gulltown's harbor safe for now. She surveyed charred hulls smoking like pyres. Send 2 prisoners south in chains atop their wreckage. Let them drift to sea. To carry word the Vale does not bend. She pivoted to the others. The rest we keep. Ironborn no tides and reefs. They'll chart us safe channels. As dawn brightened, gulls wheeled overhead shrieking. Sansa wiped bloodstain from her gauntlet and tasted the brine-laden air, half triumph, half warning. 3 days later, she reached Gulltown's high bluff. The port sprawled beneath in labyrinth of masts and gabled rooftops, gulls bickering over fish guts strewn on wharves. Smoke rose from a dozen torch storehouses, wounds of Euron's earlier raids. Dockworkers halted to gape at the column of knights trotting through the market. Cheers swelled when they recognized Royce's bronze runes, but louder still when whispers reached that Lady Stark herself led. She convened Gulltown's merchant princes in the solar of House Grafton's Seaview Manse. The marble floor still bore scorch marks from Greyjoy raiders, a reminder vivid and pungent. Lord Oric Grafton, stooped but keen-eyed, spoke for them. "Your Grace," he began. She noted the use of grace, not lady. "Iron sacks our warehouses, Sells words rove our roads. We beg the Ares shield." He gestured to ledgers piled like tombstones. "Trade with bravos and pentos falters. If coin bleeds away, so will loyalty." "Then we staunch the wound," Sansa replied. She unfurled a parchment. Daenerys's accord, signed in blood-red ink. She laid it upon the table where salt crystals clung to wood. In 2 weeks, a fleet from White Harbor will berth here with grain and ore. They will pay fair tariffs, not half again what you charge. In return, Gulltown refits their hulls and forges rivets for their anchors at cost. Profit lies in volume, not usury. A murmur rippled among merchants. Savings meant leaner purses short-term, yet secured traffic long-term. Sansa let silence press them until one by one they nodded. "And your war?" Lord Oric ventured cautiously. "Will you tax our coffers?" She met his eyes. "I tax loyalty. Those unwilling may see how well the Kraken respects neutrality." She shifted gaze to burned rafters. "The choice is yours." They chose swiftly. That evening, as she presided over refitting of Gulltown's battered galleys, Ser Lyn Corbray returned, cloak shredded, horse lathered. He slid from saddle before sheathing Lady Forlorn. Golden Company envoys captured. 2 dead, 3 surrendered. He tossed a leather satchel upon a provision crate. Blood speckled its flap. Sealed orders inside. They promise House Royce lands in the Reach should the Vale stand aside, while Sellsword's seat Cersei's babe. A boy they claim fathered by no man but promises. Royce growled, snatching the satchel. "Lies and bribes. Lies that may tempt leaner houses," Sansa said. She scanned the harbor where torches rimmed the dark water. "We answer with truth and iron." She turned to Corbray. "Well done." He inclined his head, but his usual smirk held fatigue. 2 friends slain by dearly. She ordered the envoys shackled in Gulltown's dungeon to await trial. Spies deserved rope. Yet from them she gleaned routes, muster points, numbers. 12,000 Golden Company Sellswords marshaled in King's Landing's shadow, awaiting Euron's battered fleet to ferry them. Euron's first raid at Gulltown had failed. He would double fury elsewhere. The realm trembled on cusp of wide fire. Ravens flew north with tidings of victory and warning of Sellsword plots. Jon's reply arrived 5 days later, borne by a white-feathered bird that pecked impatiently at the map table. Sansa recognized Davos's careful script. Frey's mass at the Twins, banners under Lannister gold, talk of forging new crossing north of Moat Cailin. We move to secure Neck. Daenerys leads regal patrols along coast. Stark and Mormont spears march south in a fortnight. Hold Gulltown, screen their flank. Hold. She tightened her grip on the message. War lines etched across parchment like cracks in ice. One wrong step and the surface would shatter, plunging all into frigid ruin. She stepped onto the balcony of Grafton's manse. Salt wind blurred her braid, whipping copper strands across lips. Below, galleys bobbed, sails furled, lines creaking. She imagined them sliding free, hulls packed with Northmen, their songs echoing off frosted foam. She would meet them south of the Trident when time came. But first, the Vale must remain unbroken cord securing Jon's flank. The next moonrise, a misty drizzle cloaked the harbor when watchmen cried alarm. Sails, black and gold, ghosted along the outer bay. Through spyglass Sansa counted 6 towering galleasses, decks bristling with scorpions. Between them darted a swarm of gray longships bearing painted kraken eyes. Euron had gathered survivors and allies into a single spearhead. "He wants the port aflame before Northmen sail," Royce muttered. Sansa nodded, cloak slickened by rain. "Sound horns," she ordered. Archers to seawall, catapults readied. Keep flaming corals dry under awnings until the wind favors us. The first gray dawn volley whooshed overhead, jagged bolts of blackwood clattering against stone parapets. Vale soldiers ducked. Some spearmen tossed buckets of sand onto spots where pitch sizzled. Sansa paced behind Merlin's, shouting placements, her voice raw but steady. A bolt hissed past, nicking her pauldron. She barely flinched. Harbor galleys, refitted with reinforced prows, slipped anchor. At their bows stood teams of chain-slingers, lengths of spiked iron coiled like iron serpents. Under Roland Storm's command, they rowed hard, oars chopping gray water. When first longship angled in, reavers screaming, a galley veered, flung chains. Spikes bit the reaver's prow. Sailors winched, yanking hull sideways. Reaver keels slammed jetty piles. From the quay, archers rained death, arrows slapping flesh. High on the seawall, Sansa spotted Euron's flagship slaughter song, its figurehead carved as a shrieking mermaid clutching hearts. Purple sails billowed though wind fought them. She signaled Corbray. "Dark Wing," she said. The code for the catapult packed with iron pots of bronzewood pitch captured earlier. The crew hauled the great arm. Torch touched fuse. The pot soared, arcing like dying star, trailing sparks. It smashed atop Slaughter Song's quarterdeck, detonating a fountain of sticky flame. A roar of triumph rose from walls. Euron's ship veered, flames licking masts. Yet gray longships pressed, disgorging reavers onto floating wharf. Vale men met them shield to shield. Bronzion's hammer shattered an iron-born captain's jaw. Tides churned crimson. Amid chaos, Sansa spied a Kraken banner near a side gate unmanned save a handful of militiamen. She sprinted down stair, Royce protesting behind her. Drawing Needle's son, she plunged into melee. Spray stung face, plank slick. She parried a rust-spotted cleaver, riposted under ribs. Another raider lunged. She ducked, drove pommel into his throat. Militiamen rallied behind Wolf and Falcon Cloak. Together they forced invaders back, foot by bloody foot, until Corbray's men arrived, sweeping the quay clean. A horn bellowed seaward. Slaughter Song limped to fire, listing. Euron, defiant to the last, flung curses from smoke-veiled deck, but a second catapult stone crushed his forecastle. Flames guttered in drizzle, but tar smoked lethal. One by one Kraken sails turned away, oars thumping retreat. Vale arrows chased them until distance swallowed. When final reaver corpse toppled into brine, Sansa sagged against wharf post, rain sluicing gore from armor. Thunder rolled far off, and she realized her body trembled. Exhaustion or aftershock she could not tell. Royce clasped her shoulder. "Gulltown stands," he rumbled. "Then the North's flank holds," she answered, steadying breath. She glanced to ironborn prisoners herded on knees. Wet strands of hair stuck to her brow, yet inside a core of granite hardened. "Signal White Harbor," she told Roland. "The harbor is ready." 2 weeks later, Northmen filled Gulltown's docks, singing rough tunes, beards crusted with frost. Sansa stood upon the pier to greet Lyanna Mormont leading 50 Bear Islanders, axes bigger than some of the men. Beside her marched Glover spears, umbers mighty as oaks, and behind them a ragged company wearing half-melt veil plate. Prisoners from Baelish's old Sellsword host who had sworn new oaths. Lyanna saluted smart. "We sail within the day?" Sansa nodded. "The wind favors south. The lion still sleeps behind stone walls, but the Kraken flees wounded. We strike before wounds scab." She scanned the forest of masts. Wolf's claw, maiden spear, white rose. Even an ancient Arryn war galley dusted off for battle. Her own flagship, Ares Grace, bore wide deck for command. She boarded as noon bells tolled. On quarterdeck, Roland Storm stood with compass. Royce secured helmet. Archers stacked barrels of gray-fletched shafts. Sansa raised her voice, cutting through gull cries. "Men and women of North and Vale, today we sail not for conquest but to break chains. Chains of fear, of hunger, of tyrants who bury truth beneath gold." She pointed south where sky met sea. "At Blackwater Rush, a city crouches behind walls of debt. We will show them the North remembers. The Vale soars, and no Kraken or lion may feast on us again." A roar answered, swelling like thundercloud. Lines cast, sails filled, gulls spiraled. Ares Grace glided from harbor, first of 90 sails unfurling white and gray into bright wind. Drums beat cadence, hearts hammered. Sansa turned to the horizon. Somewhere beyond, Jon marshaled legions at the neck. Daenerys circled Ariel like vengeful comet, and a queen of gold plodded behind wildfire-laced stones. Threads of war tightened, but she felt them not as strangling cords, rather as fabric she herself wove, her fingers guiding shuttle. Storms dogged them off Crackclaw Point. black squalls that lashed masts and tested seams. Yet ships held formation, White Harbor shipwrights' handiwork. On the second night, word spread of lanterns flickering behind distant waves, a shadow fleet trailing. Sansa climbed onto forecastle, spyglass trained, but fog teased illusions. Royce urged caution. Corbray prowled decks restless as wolf. Sansa ordered double watch and signal bonfires along topmasts. Should the shadow prove enemy, they would blind it in night's eye. Fog persisted dawn to dusk, muffling world in gray hush. Bells rang half-hour to keep formation. On the third day, as midday gloom barely brightened, a lookout's cry echoed, "Dead ahead, sails golden." Through mist loomed a formidable line of galleons bearing the three-headed skull of the Golden Company, black rigging taut. The surprise cut both ways. Sellsword captains had not expected northerly fleet so soon. Sansa snapped orders. Port wing, veer broadside. Starboard, maintain line. Drums thundered. Whitecaps churned between converging forces.
Scorpions a boar Vale galês vinched, Quahels glinte.
First volley took a Sellsword galleon's foresail, ripping sunburst pennant. Another pierced its tiller. The galleon slewed. Golden Company archers replied, shafts clattering rigging. A quarrel thunked into the mast beside Sansa. She flinched, drawing breath of salt and pine, then yelled for ramming speed. Ares Grace, narrower than enemy galleons but deep-keeled, surged. Chains clanked. At the perfect beat, Roland turned helm. Portside rams bit the wide belly of a sunburst ship, which splintered with gut-deep groan. Vale boarders hurled grapnels. Decks crashed together. Steel kissed steel. Sansa led over rail, Royce at flank. She parried a lacquered shield, slid blade into armpit, spun to guard her back. Rain burst from a sudden squall, drenching, slicking blood to rivulets. Thunder rolled overhead. Amid clash, she spied Captain in gilded cuirass hacking path toward her, curved saber swirling. He charged, thrust high. She blocked, sparks leapt. He pressed with muscle honed in Giskery pits, forcing her back to broken mast stump. She dropped low, kicked his knee, he staggered. She rose, driving point under his chin.
Saber claterer.
For Winterfell, she hissed, and he fell. Across decks, bare islanders roared, axes cleaving. Glover spears formed porcupine ranks, repelling counterboarders. After an hour of brutal struggle, the sunburst galleon listed, fires flickering within its hold. Vale crew cut grapnels, pushing free as flames wreathed masts. Another Sellsword vessel, seeing doom, struck colors. Its commander knelt before Royce, offering capitulation in thick Lycene accent. 3 more broke line and fled south. When fog lifted near dusk, 10 sunburst galleons smoldered or drifted rudderless. 5 had escaped. Vale and North lost 2 galleys to grapeshot and waves, but men pulled survivors aboard. Sansa surveyed the carnage, exhausted yet fierce. She had expected to skirmish, not to rupture enemy vanguard. Now their assault timetable lay shattered. She convened her captains that night within lantern-lit wardroom. Over maps damp with seawater, she sketched route. Slip behind Driftmark, join Jon's spears marching down Rose Road, encircle King's Landing before Sellswords regroup. Speed is our ally, she said, and fear our herald. Let rumors of Kraken felled and sunburst sunk ride the wind ahead. Royce stroked graying beard. We risk outpacing supply lines. Dragonfire clears supply lines, Corbray quipped, earning grim chuckles. Sansa tapped Driftmark. House Valerion's fleet lies here. If we present proof of Daenerys's accord, they may lend harbor for repairs and victuals. We sail at dawn. Dawn shimmered rose and gold as fleet rounded narrow straits toward Driftmark's chalk cliffs. Watchfires burned atop Castle Driftmark's lighthouse, but as they closed, sails bearing seahorse sigil emerged to greet, not bar. Word indeed had flown ahead. Lord Corlys Valerion's grandson Alan welcomed Sansa aboard the Silver Manta, hair pale as seafoam, cloak embroidered with pearls. Alan bowed low. The sea snake lent my sleeves boldness, he said, eyes bright. Any foe of the lions is friend of House Valerion. With safe harbor, wounded were tended, hull leaks tarred, casks replenished. Sansa spent each hour drafting letters, to Daenerys, detailing naval victory, to Jon charting new rendezvous, to Edmure, ordering river barges blockaded against Lannister retreat. She sealed them in blue wax, knots of fennel for good fortune. On the second night at Driftmark, a raven arrived bearing Bran's own seal. Its parchment held sparse words yet heavy. Golden lions sow descent in Gulltown. Beware betrayal within Vale. A shadow of mockingbird flits still. Sansa reread until ink seemed bleed. She had left Gulltown garrisoned, but Council of Merchants remained pliable. A shadow of mockingbird. Baelish's last agents might yet lurk, plotting to cut supply. She penned swift reply, charging Maester Colwyn to scour harbor for hidden conspirators, promising Royce's quick return should uproar spread. But Royce stood beside her as she wrote, reading sideways. "Send me," he said, eyes earnest. "Bronze yields to duty." Sansa paused. The army south needed his hammer, yet the Vale's heart beating safe above clouds mattered too. At last she nodded. "Take 20 swift riders through the mountains of the moon. Wings of falcon must guard the nest." Before dawn he sailed on a fast sloop. Sansa watched white sail shrink into purple horizon and felt like she had parted with stout wall brick by brick. Yet command meant granting pieces of one's shield to many fronts. Weather cleared, wind turned favorable southwest. Fleet weighed anchor, cutting across Blackwater Bay's churning blue. Smoke plumes dirted sky above distant city. Wildfire storage perhaps, or bakeries stoking ovens, no telling. But tension thickened salt air. Galleys formed arrowhead with Ares' grace at point. On the quarterdeck, Corbray scanned sprawl of spires with predator grin. A gilded lair for gilded beasts. Sansa donned helm wrought in Winterfell's forge, steel shaped as wolf's head, jaw open to snarl. She felt its weight settle but spine straighten. "Lair or tomb?" she murmured. Just past midday, horns on shore wail. City watch scrambles, tugging massive harbor chain from murky depths. Yet Vale scouts had anticipated. 3 fireships loaded with pitch had been lashed into disguised debris early dawn and allowed to drift with tide. As chain rose, one fireship snagged upon link jammed mechanism. Flames ignited, chain seized half-hoist. Galleys surged over low rise of metal, scraping but clearing harbor mouth before defenders could adjust. Chaos erupted. Bells clanged, crossbowmen loosed from parapets. But White Harbor ballistas fired back. Corals shattered crenels. Galleasses dumped warriors onto quays. Glover spears crashing into confused gold cloaks. Bear Islanders stormed Fish Market, axes splintering stalls. Sansa disembarked, boots hitting slick stone, heart hammering not with fear but fierce certainty. Within hours they seized the outer harbor. Yet she knew this was prelude. Real battle lay along Rose Road where Jon's host would drive wedge at city's landward gates. Time's essence. Hold docks, divert Golden Company left adrift at sea, keep city encircled until Dragon and Direwolf crashed both flanks. In the shadow of tall warehouses Sansa established command post. Banners unfurled. Raveners dashed between units relaying orders. She dispatched Corbray to capture grain gate storage, Lyanna to secure September of the Seven's docks. Little by little, a siege reversed. Invaders became wardens, city turned cage. By third night, Golden Company transports loomed offshore but could not berth. Their scouts saw wolf banners and flickering torch walls. Captain Strickland paced deck, fuming, unwilling to land troops into contested docks. Nor could they sail upriver under scorpion fire. Stalemate bred mutiny whispers. Sell's words sold allegiance to coin, not doom. But within King's Landing, Cersei Lannister's wrath smoldered. Ravens flew to Old Town, Highgarden's Tyrell remnant, Storm's End. Pleas for aid sealed with promise of gold and pardon. Few answered. News of defeats spread like rot. The realm's compass shifted toward wolves and dragons. On the 5th dawn, a thunderous roar rent clouds. Regal descended, emerald wings throwing wind across Blackwater. Northmen. cheered. City smallfolk cowered behind shutters. From his saddle, Daenerys surveyed harbor conquest and circled once before banking inland. She alighted near Gate of the Gods where Jon's flags had appeared overnight, gray direwolf snarling on field of ice. Sansa learned this by runner. She hurried through debris-strewn streets, helm under arm. Midway, she encountered Tyrion atop Black Stallion directing troops to barricade Wine Street. He doffed plumed cap. "Your gambit snapped the sea lock," he greeted. "Cersei's face will sour further when she learns who guided the spear." "Then let her taste vinegar," Sansa replied, but gave ghost of smile. They rode together to Outer Barbican where Jon awaited, cloak freckled with road dust, long claw sheathed but ready. He embraced her briefly, tension easing. "Your timing saved blood," he said. "Euron's blood enough for me today," she answered. Daenerys approached, armor gleaming dragon-scale black. She clasped Sansa's forearms. City edges crumble. The people starve behind Lion's horde. Open gates soon or famine will. Sansa looked from Dragon Queen to Northern King. Their uneasy harmony balanced upon hope and caution. "Then we end this," she said, "but without wildfire lighting pyres." "Without," Daenerys agreed, though flicker of fire still danced behind violet eyes. They gave the city 3 days to yield. Ravens over walls carried offer. Lay down arms, open gates, turn Cersei over for trial. Small folk spared, gold cloak pensions honored. Silence answered. On second day, barrels of rancid grain catapulted from city to Vale lines. Cersei's scorn carved into rotting husks. Bastards and traitors. Sansa ordered them burned, the stench drifting back west with westerly wind. Third day dusk, a rumble shook earth. Tunnels beneath Mudgate collapsed, cloud of dust mushrooming. Cersei had gambled on wildfire trap. Yet Jon's engineers discovered green residue near river days earlier and counter-tunneled, flooding the vaults with river silt. The explosion choked itself, leaving only acrid steam. In its wake, Daenerys mounted regal, sword above high sept, and with controlled breath scorched lion banners fluttering atop Maegor's holdfast. Symbolic flame bright enough to gild city in emerald glow but spared roofs below. Message clear. Dragon reign serves mercy, but leash may slip. That night, gold cloaks mutinied at Iron Gate, opening postern for Vale scouts who slipped within to sabotage Scorpion lines. Dawn revealed ragged Lannister soldiers surrendering a long street of silk. The siege tightened like winter vice. Inside Red Keep, Cersei drank arbor red, fingers white upon goblet. Qyburn counseled retreat through secret passages, but she would not leave Lion Den. Sansa convened final council outside King's Gate. Jon urged swift breach to spare small folk. Daenerys agreed, though wary of wildfire caches yet undiscovered. Tyrion proposed infiltration through forgotten drains that once fed Dragonpit's cistern. "My brother plotted escapes," he said, mapping brickwork memory. "We slip inside, unlock inner gate, present queen with irrefutable end." "I will go," Sansa said. Jon objected, but she silenced him with firm stare. "I know Cersei's malice. She underestimates me still, child once cowering before Joffrey's crossbow. Let her see the woman she forged." Tyrion insisted on guiding path. Davos volunteered for locks. Lyanna demanded to swing axe should scorpions lurk. Small party set off at moonrise, cloaked, skirting pickets. Drainmouth yawned by abandoned potter's shop, grate eaten by rust. They crept through slick tunnel where rats squeaked in ankle-deep slime. Tyrion counted paces, hand on mossed wall. Beyond bend, ladder rose into gloom.
Davos picked rust bolt silent. Grate lifted.
They emerged within veg garden of Maegor's bastion, rowbeds shriveled to weeds. Torches flickered along colonnade but guards thin, morale drained like moat. They stole through shadow to guardhouse, surprised 2 Lannister men dozing. Lyanna's axe pommel put them under without cry. Sansa slipped into storeroom where keys hung. Old habit had taught Cersei to keep spares near. She found ring-bearing sigil of crown atop stag, legacy of Robert, ironic tool. Climbing spiral stair, They reached gallery overlooking throne room antechamber. Through cracked doors drifted Cersei's voice, mocking, brittle. Let them starve beyond walls while they feed lies to peasants. Another voice, a child's, cooed. Rumor true, her infant there. Sansa felt pinch of pity, quickly smothered by memory of butchered family. Tyrion pointed to postern across hall. 2 guards. Lyanna and Davos moved. Quiet scuffle, daggers flashed, bodies lowered. Postern unlatched. Davos darted beyond to inner gatehouse to raise portcullis. Sansa and Tyrion pressed to throne room doors. Heart hammered like siege ram. She inhaled the dusty scent of marble polished by power. Doors parted. The hall stretched cavernous, torches casting long shadows from pillars carved as dragons. On iron throne sat Cersei Lannister in black gown trimmed crimson, golden hair loosened around shoulders. In one arm, a swaddled infant. In other, goblet of wine. Eyes of wildfire green fixed on intruders. A girl in wolf's clothing, she purred. Come to beg crown or head? Sansa stepped forward, sword sheathed, hands empty. I come to end war. Cersei's smile curved cruel. War ends when my enemies are ash. Which shall I make you? Sansa? Tyrion murmured, sensing tension, but she raised palm. You had chance to yield, Sansa said. City suffers. Your armies routed. Fleet burned. Cells words broken. Open gates. Stand trial. Your child may yet inherit a realm at peace. Cersei laughed. A brittle bell. Peace forged on my knees? Never. You speak of suffering? I fed you songbirds while my son flayed your father's honor in front of the realm. And still you bend not? Impressive. But the lioness does not bow to cub-grown teeth. She lifted goblet to lips, but pause. Eyes flicked to swaddle, to goblet again. A tremor. Sansa saw, tears brimming. For all her cruelty, motherhood lingered fragile shard. Sansa advanced 1 step. Choose your child, Cersei. Choose life. Silence stretched like drawn bow. Then faint rumble echoed. Gatehouse chains clanking. Jon's host breaching. Cersei's gaze darted to vaulted windows where dawn's light seeped. She rose slowly, golden hair shimmering. If I walk out, she whispered, they will still chant whore, usurper, kinslayer's lover. My child mocked, my line severed. Sansa's voice softened. Lines survive through mercy as well as steel. I know. She thought of Baelish falling, of her choice to spare Gulltown traitors who repented. She extended hand. End wheel of vengeance here. Cersei stared at offered hand, eyes glossy. She swayed wine heavy, then lips parted in bitter smile. A lesson too late. She pressed a kiss to infant's brow, set him within cradle by throne. Wine goblet clattered as she drew small blade from sleeve. Tyrion stepped, but Sansa motioned hold. Cersei sliced gold braid from her hair, placed it at baby's feet. A crown hewn by blood costs more than life. She dropped knife, shoulders slumping. Take me. Relief sagged Sansa's knees. Guards stormed hall as Davos raised portcullis. Jon entered, Longclaw at ease yet eyes wary. He saw Cersei standing unarmed, saw Sansa beside cradle, and nodded once. Decision made. Within hours, Lannister banners lowered. Lion sigils burned in courtyard braziers, smoke spiraling. Small folk poured from alleys holding crusts to share with Northmen.
No wildfire detonated.
No dragon rage required. A throne room surrendered to words. That night, as bells told victory, Sansa climbed parapets. King's Landing glittered with torchlit procession of freedmen chanting thanks. Though charred ruins and hunger lingered, she felt weight of destiny shift. Wolf and dragon had shattered wheel without annihilation. Yet tasks ahead immense. Feed city, heal realm, dismantle old corruption. She would shoulder her part. Footsteps approached. Jon, cloak flapping. He joined her at Crenel. Peace but fragile, he said. Glass, she replied. We'll shape it into window, not dagger. He clasped her hand, calluses rough. The realm owes you. I owe it to myself, she said softly. To our family. Stars-peppered sky above Red Keep. Somewhere regal roost, chest heaving slow. In Ares' quiet heights, robins stroked falcon feathers, dreaming of a vale free of shadows. And in northern snows, Bran saw threads woven new, threads where mockingbird's shadow finally faded. Yet story not done. Seeds of mercy and justice must germinate in soil long poisoned. But for first time in years, Sansa felt dawn's light upon her face, unburdened by chains of others' making. She breathed deep of the sea-tinged air, let it carry through her every scar, and whispered to sleeping gods, "Watch us rebuild." The gods turned their ancient eyes, and the Wolf Queen stood upon high walls, silhouette etched against breaking day. The day after Cersei's surrender dawned with a sky the color of pewter, heavy clouds rolling above the battered sprawl of kings landing like mailed shoulders above a wounded giant. Yet even that muted light seemed twice as brilliant as any dawn Sansa Stark had witnessed in months. The city was still breathing, raggedly, painfully, but breathing nonetheless, and she meant to keep it alive. She stood atop the ruined parapet of the Gate of the Gods, cloaks snapping in the briny wind, while a column of Northmen poured through the open arch below. The last of the gold cloaks who had not deserted shuffled past, stripped of their cloaks, hands bound and eyes downcast. Bare islanders herded them toward the fishmonger's square, where Jon had ordered a makeshift muster yard to house the city's remaining constabulary for screening. From behind her came the chronic din of carpenters and masons, timber clacking, stone striking stone, iron ringing as smiths mended hinges and spikes torn away by the fighting. Painted banners, hastily stitched, already hung from the broken crenels. Dire wolf and falcon above crossed trout, each flag's hem flapping like a heartbeat. That symbolism mattered. Sansa had learned long ago that banners could save more lives than blades when raised at the right time. Small folk needed to see that Northern Order, had replaced the lion's bloody paw. She turned as Tyrion Lannister clambered up the parapet stair behind her, breathless but triumphant, hair tossed by the same gusts battering her cloak. Scrolls bulged beneath his arm. "Your city watch is beginning to resemble actual soldiers," she observed. "Which is a tragedy for the city's criminals," Tyrion quipped, wiping sweat from his brow. "Already the street singers mourn the loss of their favorite bribe-mongers. But that's not why I hunted you down." He held out a sealed parchment. "The masters of Pentos received rumors of our abrupt redecorating. They intend to observe conditions before extending credit for winter grain. We can ill afford delay." Sansa slit the seal and scanned the elegant script, making a note of every veiled threat. "I will draft a reply. Remind them it was Pentoshi coin that helped fund Cersei Sell's words. If they wish to stay in our good graces, their ships will leave harbor by the next full tide." Tyrion's brow rose. A sharp claw. "I approve." He peered over the wall at the milling Northmen. Word of Queen Cersei's surrender is spreading like wildfire, without the literal flames, thank every god. But we'll need bread before praise. "Have you slept?" 2 hours, she admitted. "Enough." Sansa folded the parchment. "Go to the grain factors. Offer remission on next year's tariffs if they release stores immediately, and have the guildmasters post notice. Any merchant who hoards food risks confiscation and a public flogging." "A punishment the people will cheer," Tyrion said. He hesitated. "There are whispers in the streets. Some fear we traded a lion for a dragon, and a wolf for both." That earned a bitter smile. "Then we prove otherwise. Tell them the dragons are leashed by justice, and the wolf knows mercy." Tyrion bowed with exaggerated flourish and hastened down the stair. Sansa spent the rest of the morning in the remnants of the small hall, now converted to a command chamber. Maps littered a long oak table warped by heat scars from a wildfire pot that had detonated years before during the Battle of the Blackwater. Sea charts of Blackwater Bay unfurled beside grain tallies and troop rosters written in Davos Seaworth's tidy hand. At the head of the table sat Jon, raven-haired and red-eyed from too many sleepless nights. Daenerys Targaryen paced nearby, silver braids swinging against black dragonscale armor. Grey Worm, impassive, flanked the door. Edmure Tully and Alan Valerion argued about shipping lanes. Lord Glover hunched over a scrap of parchment, counting spears lost since the neck. Lyanna Mormont, drumming gloved fingers, looked like a cub trying to bear the weight of the direwolf sigil stitched across her chest. When Sansa entered, the voices stopped. Jon rose. She shook her head. No courts here. Only purpose. We hold the gates, the docks, and the granaries, she announced, sliding Tyrion's scroll onto the table. Pentosi grain arrives or we seize their ships. Message going out within the hour. Lord Valerion. How many vessels can escort them if pirates test our claim? For Wardromans fully crewed, Alan replied. More if we strip sailors from the merchant rows, but then hulls sit idle. For will do. She tapped the bay on the chart. Daenerys, how many Dracarys displays will it take to persuade the Golden Company transports to disarm? The Dragon Queen stopped pacing. Fewer than one, I imagine. Rhaegal shattered their morale at Driftmark. But I will not burn surrendering ships. I ask only that you boil their courage, Sansa said. A faint smile curved Daenerys' lips. We can manage that. Jon cleared his throat. The Golden Company cannot remain at anchor forever. Strike now, while their captains squabble for coin. Lyanna slammed her palm on the table. We broke their teeth already at Gulltown. Give me 50 of my women and 2 swift boats. We'll board their flagship and drag Harry Strickland back in chains. Bold, Sansa said. But every Bear Islander you lose is one we need to police the city. Better to let hunger and fear drive the Sellswords home. Send envoys promising safe passage east. No purse except the one they keep. She slid blank parchment toward Edmure. Compose it. Plain language. Offer their officers rights to charter, but only if they disarm. Edmure dipped quill. Daenerys gave Sansa an appraising look. Not admiration, not resentment, but something sharper. Recognition of an equal at the game. Then Grey Worm spoke, voice low. We have reports of Lannister loyalists gathering in the Crownlands villages. Some joined the Faith Militant. They plant 7-pointed stars and speak of false prophets from the north. The Sparrow's ghost, Jon muttered. A spark in drought pasture, Sansa said. Lawler help us if we give it wind. She drummed fingers. Dispatch ravens to every sept with this proclamation. The Queen in the north and the Queen of Dragons guarantee the faith its rights, its tithes, its sanctuaries, provided they remain apart from war. Any armed zealot outside the city surrenders weapons or is treated as outlaw. Sign it in both our names, Jon, Daenerys. Do so, Daenerys agreed, and appoint local justiciars to enforce it, Sansa added. She turned to Lord Glover. Pick 3 Northman knights with no taste for plunder. They will ride with 7 of Grey Worm's unsullied and Tyrion's scribe. 10 men show unity. 7 gods and the old. Glover grunted assent. The council dissolved into taskwork. Supply requisitions, sewer repairs, lists of midwives for fevered districts. Sansa stayed until parchment dwindled and wax puddles cooled. At last, she stepped aside with Jon beneath a shattered stained glass window where only shards of rose and teal survived. You command them, Jon said quietly. They follow even the Dragon Queen. Because I give them reason. She hesitated. You must do the same. They love you, Jon. But love alone doesn't feed them. Jon's jaw tightened. I never wanted to be this. A king, a judge. Want does not matter. She laid a hand on his arm. Mother taught us duty. We can still follow that. He covered her fingers with his calloused palm. We will together. 2 days later, Sansa walked the lanes of Flea Bottom flanked by 2 unsullied and 3 Northmen archers. Children paused their mudball game to stare wide-eyed. She knelt, offering a sweet sleep lozenge shaped like a wolf head to a girl with sallow cheeks. The child grinned, revealing a gap where 2 teeth had rotted away, then darted off. A father standing nearby muttered, "Bless you, milady," and tugged his forelock. Vendors had begun returning with baskets of river eel and sacks of sheet-cling peas once hoarded by Cersei's quartermaster. Sansa made certain they sold at fair price. If gouging occurred, the stall was seized and the goods distributed free. 3 examples on the first day quelled the rest. Now the smell of onion stew drifted over alleys that yesterday stank of carrion and offal. She paused at the chimney's end, a narrow alley where straw pallet clinics tended the wounded. Maester Colwyn and 2 Pentoshi healers worked shoulder to shoulder sewing a pike wound. Seeing her, Colwyn dabbed brow. "Milk of the poppy dwindles," he warned. "The wounded multiply, half Lannister men, but they bleed the same." "I'll requisition more from the Red Keep's apothecary," Sansa promised. She moved deeper into the ward, offering a reassuring word here, a water skin there. Among the cots she spotted a gaunt Vale archer she had met atop Tidebreaker Cape. His bandaged thigh oozed. She knelt, took his trembling hand. "My lady," he breathed, "tell my wife I fought true." "You will tell her yourself," Sansa said. She called the nearest healer, insisted he be moved to the warmest room. As the archer was lifted, he pressed something into her palm. Half a falcon brooch, broken. She closed her fingers around it, throat tight. That night, Sansa climbed to Maegor's tower roof, seeking calm. Below, lanterns dotted streets like fallen stars. Beyond, the dark sheet of the bay rippled with anchor lights of the White Harbor Fleet. She had sent a raven north, bidding Robin Arryn remain in the Eyrie until snows melted. But a part of her longed for the thin-voiced boy's chatter. Responsibility could be as lonely as any cell. Footsteps approached. Daenerys emerged from the stair, hair loose, cloak simple. For a moment neither spoke. Then the queen leaned on the stone parapet, watching the harbor. "Regal grows restless," she said. "He tastes victory in the wind and hungers for the sky." "Wolves pace cages after a kill, too," Sansa replied. Daenerys smiled faintly. "I did not cage him tonight, only my heart." "Is it a cage?" Sansa asked. "Or a shield?" Daenerys studied her. "You understand both." She turned back to the lights. "I came to say, I will not claim the city's throne room, not until peace is certain. We will govern from the small hall for now." "That is wise," Sansa said. "Symbols can wound as sharply as daggers. Let the people heal before they see a new queen. On the Iron Throne." She hesitated, then added, "And when they do see, show them the throne is a seat of justice, not conquest." Daenerys breathed deep. "That is what I want. Sometimes the world denies me gentler roads. Help me keep this one." Sansa extended a hand. Daenerys clasped it, their fingers cold against stone. They stood thus, 2 women who had survived fire and ice and men's ambitions, gazing across the dark water at a world newly unmade. On the 5th dawn, horns blared from the river gate. The Golden Company fleet was sailing east under truce, banners lowered, catapults dismantled. Strickland had accepted terms, safe passage for swords, but left half his treasure chests behind to pay debts. Dragons circled once overhead, but did not burn. Sel's words cheered relief. City folk cheered louder. Sansa oversaw the inventory of surrendered arms. Chests of Braavosi shortswords stamped with lilies, Volantene shields of turtle shell, Southron longbows with golden sunburst tips. She had them hauled to a foundry yard to be melted into plowshares, axes, door hinges, anything but weapons. It was true symbolism again. Break blades, build homes. By noon, she was back in council. Reports flowed. The faith militants in outlying villages had accepted her proclamation. 3 septons surrendered pikes before crowds. Glover's justiciars encountered only minor scuffles. Pentosi grain sails unfurled off the narrow sea, guarded by Valerian Dramans. All seemed to steady. Then a raven arrived on dusk-dark wings. Bronze Yone's sigil sealed its clawed cylinder. Sansa read. Her heart lurched. Lords Belmore and Hersey conspire with surviving Baelish agents. They plan to seize the Eyrie while Robin hunts in the sky cells under guard of minimal retainers. Corbray detained 2 riders bearing forged proclamations naming Belmore protector. "I muster loyalists but time thin. Send aid." Sansa's fists tightened. Mockingbird shadow indeed lingered. She strode to Jon, who conferred with Davos. Jon read, expression dark. "You need to fly north," he said. "Tonight." she agreed. She turned to Daenerys, who listened silent. I will borrow a swift sloop, 200 men. You'll have Regal, Daenerys said. Faster than any sail. Sansa hesitated. A dragon above the Vale might sow fear. Better fear than coup. Daenerys laid a hand on Sansa's shoulder. I'll ride him. We'll land at Iron Oaks below the mountain and march discreetly. Vale lords have seen Regal before. They know his fire spares the innocent. Sansa exhaled. Very well. Preparations whirled. Lyanna insisted on joining. Tyrion supplied parchments confirming Daenerys' authority. Davos fetched mountain guides from Storm's End garrison. Before midnight, under cloak of broken clouds, Regal lifted from the Red Keep courtyard, wings thundering. Daenerys and Sansa sat astride the ridged neck. Lyanna clung behind with a grin that would shame 10 grown men. The dragon banked east, climbed into cold stars. King's Landing's lights dwindled to ember glow, then vanished beneath cloud sea. The flight north was swift. They skirted the coast, talons of wind lashing cloaks. Sansa's eyes watered, but she forced them open. Below, waves crashed silver under moonlight. Gulls scattered as Regal's shadow flashed above. She felt terror and liberation fused, as though every chain ever laid upon her melted in high air. By dawn, snowy crests of the mountains of the moon emerged, tinged pink. Regal spiraled down to the misty slopes near Iron Oaks. They dismounted among startled pine martens, breath steaming. More than 200 Northmen had ridden hard from the North Road and awaited with Bronze Yohn's cousins. They fell in line wordless. Sansa and Daenerys led the march up the winding goat path to the Ares side door, avoiding main gates. The air thinned, snow scraped boots. Sentry horns blared when Regal's silhouette passed overhead. Belmore men panicked, some fleeing from walls. Corbray's loyalists threw open postern. Inside, stone corridors echoed as conspirators realized their scheme unraveling. Lord Belmore, gaunt and pale, tried to rally guards in the high hall. Daenerys strode through smoke of overturned braziers, eyes blazing, while Regal perched on the courtyard ledge beyond shattered windows. One growl quashed resistance. Belmore dropped sword. Sansa advanced, face carved from ice. How much did the Mockingbird promise? She asked. Freedom from wolves, he whispered. Freedom or leash? She nodded to Corbray, who bound him for trial. Robin Arryn emerged from corridors, shaking but alive. He saw Sansa and ran into her arms. I knew you'd come, he breathed. She hugged him, blinking moisture away. You will always have me, little Robin, she whispered. And the Vale will have you. Later, in the Crescent Chamber where she once poisoned Littlefinger, Sansa presided over a quick tribunal. Evidence laid plain. Forged seals, bribes of Myrish gold, letters referencing Baelish's hidden coffer in Sisterton. Belmore and Hersey confessed, hoping to split the Vale in exchange for Golden Company titles. Sansa sentenced them to join the Night's Watch. Mercy outweighed Headman's axe. She would not feed cycles of blood if exile sufficed. As they were led sobbing to the cellars, snow fell through half-shattered window, soft, silent, new. Sansa watched the flakes melt on cold stone and felt something unclench inside. The Mockingbird's final echo was silenced not by knives but by justice delivered in the same chamber he once used for deceit. 2 weeks later, a council gathered in Winterfell's restored Great Hall. Jon, Daenerys, Sansa, Bran in weirwood carved seat. Arya returned from distant wilds, Edmure, Alan Valerion, Lyanna, Glover, Davos, Grey Worm. Fire roared in hearths. Banners of wolf and dragon hung entwined. Robin Arryn perched near Maester Colwyn, nervously stroking his falcon. Bran spoke first, voice carrying ancient resonance beyond boyhood. The wheel is cracked but not yet broken. You must decide what shape its rim will take. One realm or many. Jon looked to Daenerys, then to Sansa. She rose. The North fought for freedom and found common cause with the Dragon of the South. But a realm of 7 kingdoms bound by fear will shatter again. Let us forge a pact of equals instead. a confederation where each kingdom governs its people yet stands against any tyrant who would rise. Murmurs spread, curious, cautious. Daenerys tilted her head. And the Iron Throne is melted into plowshares, like Sellsword blades. Sansa met her gaze. A new seat may stand, one built of wood from every kingdom, set not above but among. A council of lords and ladies, chosen by their peers to guide peace. Arya grinned, feet propped on bench. Sounds less stabby. Alan Valerion chuckled. Edmure rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. Robin nodded with earnest eagerness. Jon folded arms. Sansa proposes what our father dreamed. Unity without chains. He looked at Bran. Can it be kept? Bran's eyes clouded silver. Many threads lead here. The loom can weave new cloth, if hands remain steady. Daenerys stepped forward, unhooking the dragon head brooch fastening her cloak. She set it on the table. I did not cross seas to be queen of ashes or of fear. If the people choose this council, I will serve it as one voice, not its master. The hall erupted in overlapping voices. Shock, relief, excitement. Lyanna banged gauntlet for order. Glover spoke. Let each kingdom choose a spokesperson to this council. One for the north, the Vale, the Riverlands, the Westerlands, Stormlands, Reach, Dorne, and perhaps the Iron Islands if they swear to keep axes home. Sansa inclined her head. And the free cities may send envoys to trade, not meddle. The vote passed by acclamation. A new realm, 7 crowns in council. No iron seat, no single sovereign, only vows of mutual defense and prosperous alliance. The pact would be ratified come full spring at the Isle of Faces, watched by old gods and new. That evening, Sansa walked the Godswood with Jon. Snowdrops pushed through the last crust of ice beneath the red leaves. You could have taken the throne for yourself, Jon said. I never wanted a throne. She touched a white trunk, feeling its ancient pulse. I wanted a life I could live, without fear, without someone else's leash. And now I will tend the Vale and watch over Winterfell when you ride south for council. I am the wolf of the mountains, Jon, and the sky belongs to my falcons. But the north remains my blood. He rested his forearm against the tree beside hers. Father would be proud. Tears welled, but they were soft, clean tears. Perhaps, she said, perhaps he and Mother walk these woods and see. They stood in silence, listening to wind rustle crimson leaves. The future waited, uncertain, daunting, unscripted. Yet Sansa felt no dread. She had climbed the ladder of chaos and reforged it into bridge. Past pain had not broken her. It had tempered her spirit like Valyrian steel. She raised her face to the branches, to a sky just beginning to sprinkle new snow upon ancient, patient earth. Watch us rebuild, she whispered again. And this time the wind answered, soft and sure, like a mother's hand smoothing her daughter's hair. Far above, a falcon keened, wings catching starlight. And in the deep of the wood, the old gods listened and were satisfied.